Have you ever had that moment where you know exactly, and I mean exactly, what is wrong with your life? You know why you procrastinate, you know why you react angrily to criticism, you can trace it back to some event in 1998, but you still do it?
Oh, absolutely. The classic I understand my problem perfectly, yet here I am, doing it again. It's the paradox of modern self-improvement. We have more insight than ever, but insight doesn't necessarily equal change.
Exactly. It feels like we're just becoming better at describing our own prisons, and that's actually what I want to dig into today. We're looking at a system called NEDS, Neuro-Entity Dynamics System. It's a bit of a mouthful, but the premise is fascinating because it claims that the reason we get stuck isn't because we're lazy or broken, but because we are trying to change the wrong thing.
Right. It's a fundamental shift in perspective. Most therapy, coaching, or self-help focuses on patterns. We try to change our thought patterns, our behavioral patterns, or our emotional reactions. And, don't get me wrong, that can work for a while. You can trim the branches of a tree, and it looks different.
But the roots are still there.
Precisely. NEDS argues that patterns are just the output. Beneath the pattern, there is a structure that makes that repetition necessary. If you don't change the architecture, the system will just find a new way to manifest the old problem.
That's a heavy concept. It's like rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. The room looks better, but the ship is still sinking. So let's talk about this structure. The source material uses a very specific and honestly slightly sci-fi term, neuroentities. When I first read that, I thought we were talking about ghosts.
No, no ghosts here. And it's not spiritual either. It's a functional description. Think about it this way. Deep inside your nervous system, there are configurations, bundles of memory, emotion, belief, and physical sensation that act semi-autonomously. They have a job. Usually, that job is protection.
So it's like a subprogram running in the background of a computer?
That's a great analogy. Imagine you have a security program installed to protect you from a virus you caught 10 years ago. That program is still running, using up battery, scanning everything, and shutting down new apps because it thinks they're threats. In NEDS, we call that an entity because it behaves like it has a life of its own. It has a drive to survive, it has a logic, and it resists being deleted.
That explains so much about resistance. We usually beat ourselves up for self-sabotage, but you're saying this entity is actually trying to help, just in an outdated way?
Exactly. It's a protective structure. And here is the kicker. Most methods try to fight the entity. They try to crush the ego, or force positive thinking over the negative emotion. But NED says you can't force a system to reorganize. If you attack an entity, what does it do?
It fights back, it digs in deeper.
It adapts. The system temporarily adjusts to relieve the pressure, which is why you might feel better for a week after a breakthrough workshop, but the core configuration hasn't changed. The entity just went underground and will pop up somewhere else. Maybe you stop smoking, but you start overeating. The structure remains.
So how does NEDS actually tackle this? If we aren't fighting it and we aren't just talking about it, Pennis, what are we doing?
The goal is reorganization, not adaptation. It's about identifying these structures and, this is key, separating your identity from them. We often say, I am anxious. NEDS teaches you to see that there is a structure running an anxiety program.
That sounds like a subtle semantic trick, but I imagine the experience is very different.
It's profound. It's the difference between drowning in the ocean and standing on the shore watching the waves. NEDS creates a container where these internal processes can finally complete. A lot of our issues are just stuck processes, emotions or reactions that never got to finish their cycle because we repressed them or distracted ourselves. NEDS allows the system to discharge that energy and reorganize itself naturally.
Discharge without collapse. I liked that phrase from the notes. But I have to play devil's advocate here. This sounds intense. Is this something I can just try at home? Like, can I buy a NEDS workbook and fix my internal architecture on a Sunday afternoon?
That is a hard no, and the system is very strict about this. NEDS is not self-help. You cannot do this surgery on yourself.
Why not? I mean, I can meditate alone, I can journal alone.
Because you are the system that needs changing. Your survival mechanisms are too smart for you. If you try to dismantle your own defense structures, your brain will simply trick you. You'll dissociate, or you'll rationalize, or you'll get overwhelmed. You need an external container, a trained facilitator who holds the structure so you don't have to.
It's like trying to tickle yourself. It doesn't work because your brain anticipates the move.
Exactly. Plus, there's a safety aspect. We are dealing with deep structural loads. If you pull out a load-bearing wall in your house without a contractor, the roof comes down. NEDS is designed to be slow, precise, and safe. It's not about emotional catharsis. Screaming into a pillow might feel good, but it doesn't rebuild the house. NEDS is architectural.
That distinction between catharsis and reorganization is fascinating. I think we're addicted to catharsis. We want the big cry, the big breakthrough moment. But Ned seems to value boredom, or maybe just patience.
I wouldn't say boredom, but definitely precision. It's not for thrill seekers. It's not for people who want a quick fix or a life hack. It's for people who are willing to tolerate complexity. It's for the person who says, I don't need to be pumped up or motivated. I need to fundamentally change how my system is wired.
So, who is this actually for? If it's not therapy, and they are very clear that it doesn't diagnose or treat mental illness, and it's not coaching because it's not about goals, where does it sit?
It sits in a unique space of functional human development. It's for people who have a certain level of internal capacity. You need to be able to observe yourself without freaking out. If someone is in an acute crisis, panic attacks, severe trauma activation, suicidal thoughts, NEDS is not the starting point. They need clinical stabilization first. NEDS is for the person who is stable but stuck, the person who feels that glass ceiling inside them.
It sounds like it requires a lot of personal responsibility.
Massive amounts. It doesn't offer you a narrative. It doesn't tell you it's not your fault because your parents did X. It just looks at the structure. Okay, this is how you are configured right now. Do you want to watch it reorganize? It separates the story from the mechanism.
That's terrifying to some people. We love our stories. Our stories define us. I'm the victim, or I'm the survivor, or I'm the perfectionist.
And that's exactly what NEDS challenges. An entity often uses identity as a shield. If I believe I am a perfectionist, I will defend that behavior. If I see it as a perfectionism entity that was installed to keep me safe from criticism when I was 5, suddenly, I have space to let it go.
I want to touch on the training aspect. The text mentions that becoming a practitioner isn't just about learning techniques, it's about capacity.
Yes, you can't lead someone further than you've gone yourself. Since NEDS relies on the facilitator to hold a stable container, that facilitator needs to be incredibly regulated. They aren't doing techniques on you. They are resonating with your system. If they are anxious or impatient, your system will feel it and lock up.
So it's less about doing and more about being?
It's about doing with extreme precision. It's an architectural system, not a toolbox. In many modalities, you learn tool A for anxiety, tool B for anger. In NEDS, you learn the logic of the system. Once you understand the logic, how entities form, how they protect, how they discharge, you don't need 100 tools. You just need to follow the process.
It's the difference between a mechanic who just replaces parts until the car works and an engineer who understands the engine design.
Perfect. And that's why they warn against mixing it. You can't just take a NEDS technique and sprinkle it into a motivational speech. It dilutes it. The power comes from the integrity of the closed loop: identification, separation, discharge, reorganization. If you skip steps, you just get a weird hybrid that doesn't really work.
It's distinct, it's rigorous, and it seems to demand a lot of patience. As we wrap up, I'm thinking about the future of this kind of work. We seem to be moving away from the hustle mentality of self-help towards something deeper, more somatic.
I think we are reaching the limits of cognitive control. We've tried thinking our way out of our problems, and we've realized the body and the nervous system are running the show. NEDS is part of this new wave that respects the biology of change. It acknowledges that we are complex, biological systems, not just brains in jars.
It leaves us with a provocative thought. What if the things we hate most about ourselves, our blocks, our fears, our stubborn habits, are actually the most intelligent parts of us, just stuck in a time loop?
And what if, instead of fighting them, we finally gave them permission to retire? That is the promise of structural reorganization. Peace, not through victory, but through integration.
That's a beautiful place to stop. Peace through integration. For everyone listening, if you've been banging your head against the wall of insight without change, maybe it's time to stop looking at the wallpaper and start checking the foundation.
Check the architecture. Always.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Until next time, keep listening to what's underneath the noise.